Hey everyone, this is Josh from Magic the Brothering, and today I'm here to talk to you about one of my favorite tribes of all time in Magic, Elves. While I love Burn, Elves happens to be my second favorite deck in the format of Modern, as well as my new favorite for Legacy. But we'll be talking about Legacy later on. Right now, we're going to be looking at how the Modern Elf deck functions. Please note, I am not a professional Magic player in any way, shape, or form, nor am I suggesting this is my be-all, end-all way to do Elves, because there are tons of other ways of building it. There's tons of information via primers, deck techs, and other long-standing videos and articles from websites that have tons of information on the deck. I'm just offering my slice of how I make it work, because it's just my favorite deck and I really want to talk about it today. So, with all this said, let's begin. First off, the deck needs some elves in order to be considered an elf deck. 35 works. For the types of elves we'll be running the following. Dork Step Mana Ramp, creatures with Enter the Battlefield abilities, creatures with Lord effects, and creatures that can finish the game. Generally, you will want all the mana you can get with an elf deck. We do this by playing Mana Dorks turn 1 and ramping into big mana fast. We run playsets of Llanowar Elves and Elvish Mystic, aka the copies 5 through 8 of Llanowar Elves, in the deck. These are the two quintessential mana dorks for the deck, and playing these turn 1 usually puts us ahead of curve and gets us into endless possibilities and opportunities for our deck. From there, we can do whatever we want, but usually by turn 2, we want to play something like one of our Nettle Sentinels or Heritage Druids, which we run playsets of. The reason these are in the deck is because of the interaction the two provide each other and the rest of our board state of elves throughout the game. With Nettle Sentinel, it comes to the ability of it being able to tap and untap from us playing a green spell during our turn. Otherwise, it doesn't untap. Using Nettle Sentinel with Heritage Druid's ability of tapping for 3 green mana off of 3 elves is very easy to go into big mana really fast and get us into a big board state really fast. Plus, I also find it very funny if you play more than one Nettle Sentinel and the Heritage Druid to make it work. Some of the elves we can use to flood the board have Enter the Battlefield effects that help us gain an advantage. I've typically found that having a number of Dwynen's Elite and Elvish Visionaries in the deck is great for card draw and getting extra bodies onto the battlefield quickly. There is a bit of a debate between going for 4 of each type of creature in the deck. While that would be the quintessential way to do it, I have found, and many others have found, that that's not always the case. It really depends on what type of game plan you're going for, whether it's more combo or straight on with creatures, or how your meta handles everything. So whether you want more card draw to be able to get into more elves and more mana, or if you wanted to get into more bodies with Dwynen's Elite, it really depends on how it works for you. That's what makes Elves great, is you have so many options to be able to make it work. However, I myself have found that running 4 Visionary and at least 3 to 4 Dwynen's Elites usually is the best plan. Another elf that is worth mentioning in the deck is Shaman of the Pack. While this obviously makes us green-black now because of the black mana and its mana cost, this 3 mana 3/2 elf is great because of its ability of entering the battlefield and making our opponents lose life equal to the number of elves we control. This can easily swing games into your favor if you've fallen behind on life, and he's also just a great option to have. Elves with the Lord effect, or being able to give a creature of the same creature type +1/+1, is really great in an elf deck because we're running 35 elves. We're going to want them huge. And so, my favorites are Elvish Archdruid and Elvish Clancaller. Elvish Archdruid is 3 mana for a 2/2 and gives our elves +1/+1 and has the added ability of tap. Add green mana for each elf you control. Having a Gaia's Cradle on a stick is great for us because we can make so much mana and we don't have to worry about tapping our lands as much now, which can be really great if we want to get into some dumb combo shenanigans, or if we just want to make our guys really big with, say, Azuri. Elvish Clancaller, on the other hand, is a 2 green mana 1/1 elf with the Lord effect, and also has pay 6, go find another copy of Elvish Clancaller and put it onto the battlefield, shuffle your library. This can be great if we want to try and close out a game rather quickly, and being able to buff up our dudes is really great to have. Another Lord that I used to run in the deck was Elvish Champion. I don't anymore because I have found that Elvish Clancaller and Elvish Archdruid are great and efficient creatures and do just enough in the game to make it swing in our favor. While the Forest Walk and the Lord effect from Elvish Champion is great and all, you can run them if you want, but I've just found that Clan Caller and Archdruid are what works best for me. Creatures that can finish the game are usually our endgame cards, obviously. If they stick around, it's usually a GG from the opponent, and I have found 2 creatures usually are the best options to go for, and they are Craterhoof Behemoth and Azuri Renegade Leader. Azuri has the abilities of tap a green mana and regenerate another target elf you control, or we can dump 4 generic and 2 green mana to overrun our opponent, aka give +3/+3 and trample. And the fact this ability can stack is really great too if you want to really bash your opponent into the ground. Azuri is great, but I have found that he gets taken out rather quickly. Craterhoof Behemoth, on the other hand, is really big, being 8 mana, has haste, and has the really nice ability of, when he enters the battlefield, creatures you control get +X/+X, where X is equal to the number of creatures you control. Oh yeah, and those creatures gain trample too. This dude is really big, really awesome, and is basically like dropping a nuclear bomb onto the board state. I myself do not run Craterhoof in the modern variant of Elves because Azuri is just what works best for me, but Craterhoof isn't lost on me though. He is in my Legacy variant, and I will be discussing that later. With the creatures out of the way, what else is there to do in the deck? Play some spells that help us get elves. I play a playset of Collected Company and 2 Court of Calling. Court of Calling helps us find those key cards whenever we really need a specific card to help us deal with a pesky situation. Collected Company is a really good card to have at the end of a turn when your opponent's tapped out, and you can just say, hey, I'm gonna just put some more creatures on the board, you can't do anything about it. Most of the time, those elves can either be just more mana dorks, or they can be us accidentally getting into, say, an Azuri, or just Clan Callers, because I've had it to where I've gotten 2 Clan Callers off of it and was able to finish a game on the next swing. Or, what's really funny is getting 2 Shaman of the Packs off of it. What does the mana base look like? Considering this deck is green-black, I have a playset of any green-colored fetch land to help me find my 2 copies of Overgrown Tomb. Otherwise, I have a playset of Blooming Marshes for early green-black mana to help with Shamans of the Pack, and also to help with sideboard cards. I also have a playset of Cavern of Souls to help with mana fixing, and the ability to be having our creatures come in without worrying about counterspells is really nice to have. Now, I understand that Cavern of Souls is currently really expensive. While Ultimate Masters is a nice place for the reprint, it may not affect the price as much as we would like, and so I suggest, for a budget alternative, get Unclaimed Territory. It does a similar thing, the only difference is it does not have the screw you counterspell ability onto it. Other than that, I just run 4 forests, and that makes it 19 lands in total. While some people run Pendelhaven or Westphal Abbey for their abilities in the deck, I just found that keeping the mana base rather simple and not too complicated is what helps me in my meta, and has helped me throughout the years of playing the deck. What does the sideboard look like? Well, it's kinda hard to say. It really depends on your meta. In my case, I have found that running Kitchen Finks for life gain is really good. Running 1 to 2 Pithing Needles is really good to deal with pesky cards like a lot of Planeswalkers and some dumb artifacts that can get away with some shenanigans. Thoughtseize of any amount is really good, and Surgical Extractions to kind of complement Thoughtseize is really good. Also, playing some Chokes to deal with islands is really good, and also playing Reclamation Sages for dealing with artifacts and enchantments is really good. The rest is up to you, and it really depends on your meta. I have found that some people run even more creatures out of the sideboard, and some people run just a lot of spells out of the sideboard. It really depends on what you want to run. Now for the Legacy variant. There isn't too much of a difference between Modern and Legacy, except for a couple $100 thanks to Gaia's Cradle and Bayou, but otherwise, the deck is similar to Modern, except for it runs more pieces to be able to piece together this complicated puzzle. You remove 4 dorks and replace them with Querying Ranger and Wirewood Symbiote. Wirewood Symbiote and Querying Ranger both do similar things, but one requires you to put a forest back into hand while the other requires you to put a elf back into hand. Both of these are really good abilities to have in case you want to deal with something like a board wipe, or being able to make sure you have pieces to combo off again and again and again. Because there have been times where I've had to activate Wirewood Symbiotes numerous times to be able to put elves back into hand and play them again. And also it makes for a fun combat trick when you want to block, and before damage you put the elf that you're blocking back into hand so you can keep it around. With Querying Ranger, it's just nice to be able to say, hey, I need lands, I haven't played lands for turn, I'm going to put this land that I've had on the battlefield back into hand and play it and go from there. And usually having 1 to 2 of each out on the field is really nice. Another fun creature to run in this deck is Birchlore Ranger. I myself run 2, and they're great to help with a pinch when you need to make black mana and you don't have a Bayou. This, coupled with the abilities of Wirewood and Quirion Ranger, make really good help out of sticky situations, and they are really nice to have just in case you need to make more mana. The next cards I want to talk about are a playset of Green Sun Zenith and the playset of Glimpse of Nature in the deck. Green Sun Zenith is usually only used to get Dryad Arbor out turn 1. However, if you need to be able to go find something in your library that you don't have in hand, say a Nettle Sentinel, Twinen's Elite, Heritage Druid, any of your mana dorks, or something like getting a Crater Hoof out of your library when you don't have Natural Order, it's great to have. Glimpse of Nature just helps us combo, because look, elf, draw, elf, draw, elf, draw, elf, draw. Drawing all these cards and getting into big mana and comboing off is really nice. However, it also helps us in setting up the combo if we don't want to try and go off that one turn. While going off is nice, sometimes you just have to hold back and wait until the next turn. Also, with Green Sun Zenith, I would like to add that it acts as a similar variant of Court of Calling, but with the nice effect of you can shuffle it back into your library. And speaking of cards that find pieces, Natural Order is really nice to be able to help us just simply say, I'm going to Natural Order into Crater Hoof, do you have responses? While, yes, you have to sacrifice a small creature, or any green creature rather, to go find said Crater Hoof, or any big dumb green creature you want to play, like a Palaka Worm or Wildspide Worm, or any others, it usually is Crater Hoof. Just plain and simple, it's you go get Crater Hoof off Natural Order. If they have no responses, the game's over. Speaking of Crater Hoof, I myself run 2 Crater Hoofs, while I have heard people having various success with Archon of Valor's Reach from Battle Bond. This is something I'm going to have to look into. The last card in the deck I want to talk about before we get to lands is Crop Rotation. I run 2 to offset how expensive Gaia's Cradle is, and the fact I already only have 2. However, I have found through playing that Crop Rotation is really great in case you don't have, say, a Bayou or a Cavern of Souls and you need to go find it, and you can just say, hey, I'm going to use this forest, tap it, sack it to the Crop Rotation, go get a Gaia's Cradle, a Cavern of Souls, or a Bayou, and use it for its fun shenanigans. Because Crop Rotation has helped me out quite a bit and has surprisingly won me some games out of nowhere. Speaking of lands, the lands are sort of the same, except for I have 17. I have no people that run between 15 to 17 in their Elves lists. However, it just depends on how you want to make it work. For me, it's working off of the fact that I run 6 green fetches, 5 forests, 2 Bayou, 2 Gaia's Cradle, and I'm debating on going up to 4 Cavern of Souls, but right now I have 2. And lastly, a Dryad Arbor. Most people run Legacy Elves with 4 Gaia's Cradles to get maximum efficiency in getting big mana really fast off of their elves. But, as I stated previously, I can only afford 2 right now, and so I'm using the whole 2 Gaia's Cradle, 2 Crop Rotation thing to make it work out. And so far, it has been going really well for me. What does the Legacy sideboard look like? Again, depends on how your meta works. In my case, there are some Storm players around, so I run a lot of Cabal Therapies and Thoughtseizes for hand attack, and also being able to name Storm cards to not be able to have them play them. Also naming Force of Will with Cabal Therapy is nice. Abrupt Decay is really nice to deal with stuff like Chalices and other annoying 3 mana or less permanents. However, Assassin's Trophy also does the job very well. Nissa Vital Force is really great because making lands into creatures is funny. Pithing Needle because naming Planeswalkers and being able to just say, no, you can't do that. 2 activated abilities like Chrome Mox, for example, is really funny. Surgical Extraction is also great because it can help us capitalize on the hand attack that we deal with. And in my case, because I mentioned Storm, I run 2 Mindbreak Traps. I know it's weird, but for me, it's what works. It's actually saved me a couple of times in dealing with a Storm player, no matter how mad they got. All told, the difference between the 2 decks is not that much, apart from the lands. Because that's just obvious. Gaia's Cradle is stupid expensive, Bayous are stupid expensive. If you have to, I have seen this happen, and I did this before, run Overgrown Tomb. The deck only runs 2 colors. You gotta do what you gotta do. Lands aside, the difference between the Modern and Legacy variant is with the Legacy variant, you can accidentally combo off turn 2. Modern variant is just a smidge slower just because of what we have to work with. But both of them are very, very, very efficient at getting little creatures onto the battlefield, making them big, and swinging. If you've enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and for now, this is Josh with Magic the Brothering, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.